This happened just a few weeks ago. I moved to the old neighborhood in the suburbs, thinking it would be good for me. I wanted a quieter area after living in the city for years. I thought the familiar streets would inspire my graphic design work. The neighborhood looked normal enough, with neat lawns and homes that reminded me of my childhood. On my first night, I was finally settling in. The walls felt thicker than I remembered. As I lay in bed, I heard a soft, rhythmic tapping against my bedroom wall. It felt strange but not alarming. At first, I thought it was just the house settling or maybe a neighbor's routine. The sound was faint, so I tried to ignore it. But it lingered longer than I expected. As the nights went on, however, the tapping grew louder. Sometimes, it almost sounded like a woman humming a lullaby mixed in with the knocks. It was unsettling. My heart raced as I lay there, listening. I told myself I was just tired and my mind was playing tricks on me. Then there was my neighbor. I often saw her sitting on her porch, staring blankly at her front gate. She never seemed to do much else. It was like she was waiting for someone who never showed up. I watched her from my window, uneasy just seeing her. I thought about asking if she was okay, but something held me back. I was scared of what she might say or if she might even respond at all. The tapping and the lullaby wouldn't leave me. I felt like they meant something more. I wasn't sure if it was about her life or if I was just losing my mind. The humming felt familiar, but I couldn't quite place it. Days passed, filled with questions and no answers. One night, I stood in my living room, staring at her empty porch. I considered walking over and saying hello. But my feet didn't move. I heard the tapping again, louder this time. A chill ran down my spine. It was as if the lullaby was urging me to stay still. I thought I saw her glance in my direction, her eyes filled with something I couldn't recognize. That's when it took a turn. I walked to the front door. I gripped the handle, thinking maybe this time I would find clarity. But before I could open it, I heard her voice call out, "Why do you hide?" I froze. My heart pounded wildly. I turned around, but I didn't see her. I felt something cold against my skin, a shiver that crawled up my back. I felt like I was caught in a moment of disbelief, unable to understand what had just happened. Then I gathered my courage. I moved to the door again, feeling the cold grip of fear. I wiped my sweating hands on my pants. I forced myself to open the door. I needed answers. But there was only silence and darkness outside. Did she really say that? I saw her silhouette in the shadows. Her eyes met mine, and all I could do was stand there. I felt rooted to the spot. I knew I had to confront her. The tapping resumed, and I turned my head to listen, my heart still racing. I wasn't alone anymore. I stood there, caught between the safety of my house and the unknown lurking outside. The silhouette remained silent, but her presence felt heavy, almost suffocating. I hesitated, my instinct screaming for me to retreat, yet a voice in my head urged me forward. "Are you okay?" I finally managed to call out. My voice broke the silence, mingling with the distant tap-tap-tap that echoed in my mind. She didn't reply, just continued to stare. The moonlight highlighted her expressionless face, but it was her eyes that sent chills down my spine. They were deep-set and hollow, as if she were peering into a dark void inside me. I felt exposed. Just as I was about to back inside, she whispered, "You hear it too, don't you? The lullaby?" My breath caught in my throat. How did she know? I forced out a shaky, "What do you mean?" "It's calling you," she said, her gaze unwavering. "It always calls." I could feel the air thicken around us. The warmth of summer night faded, replaced by a creeping chill. I stepped back instinctively. I wanted to dismiss her words, to deny the panic rising within me, but deep down, I knew there was a truth to what she said. The tapping turned into a rhythmic crescendo, pounding against my wall, more insistent than before. It was almost like a heartbeat, quickening now, rising in urgency. My instincts screamed for me to shut the door, to block it all out. But the neighbor's eyes held me in place. "You shouldn't be here," she warned suddenly, her voice low. "They will come for you." "What do you mean?" My heart raced. I felt like I was teetering on the edge of something I didn't understand. "Who will come?" The tapping pulsed in response, echoing the dread creeping through me. I looked toward the darkening street, scanning for any sign of movement. That sensation of being watched settled over me. "They won't stop until you listen," she said, and for a moment, I could have sworn fear flickered in her eyes. A sudden loud knock came from the living room, pulling my attention from her. It was jarring enough to break our stare. I turned back inside, my heart thumping in my chest. The noise was there, undeniable. Now someone was inside. Panic flooded my senses. I swung the door open wider and called into the darkness, "Is anyone in there?" But the only reply was the eerie tapping. I glanced back at my neighbor. She had stepped closer, shadows engulfing her. "You must choose," she said softly. "Stay in your safety, or follow the call." I looked back and forth, weighing my options. I felt the weight of her words. The laughter of the past snuck away, replaced by cold dread. Every instinct screamed that this wasn't over. When everything went dark I stumbled backward, my breath quickening. I felt a pull from within, as if the house itself was alive and hungry for answers. The last thing I saw before losing sight was my neighbor's piercing eyes, urging me forward, deeper into the unknown. In the suffocating darkness, I forgot everything else. The lullaby echoed, a promise and a threat. I had to know more. I had to confront whatever waited for me inside. I woke with a start, my heart racing, the air thick with an unnerving silence. The comforting hum of the night seemed to have vanished. I blinked, trying to adjust to the darkness, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The tapping had stopped, replaced by a disconcerting stillness that wrapped around me like a shroud. My living room was dimly lit by moonlight filtering through the curtains. I pushed myself off the floor, realizing I had fallen. What had happened just before everything went black? My neighbor. The call. The warning. I needed to know what was happening, but fear anchored me in place. "Hello?" I called out, my voice sounding small and shaky in the empty room. No response. The house felt different, like it had shifted while I was unconscious. I took a hesitant step towards the hallway, each creak of the floorboard echoing my reluctance. The shadows seemed to stretch and twist along the walls, as if they were alive. When I noticed it. An object on the table. A small music box. Its surface gleamed like it had just been placed there, untouched by time. It was familiar somehow. I approached it, and a chill ran down my spine. It was the same box that I had played with as a child. The same lullaby echoed softly in my mind, faint but unmistakable. I opened the box, and the melody spilled out, wrapping around me. It was beautiful yet haunting, stirring a mix of nostalgia and dread. I wanted to turn it off, to shut it away, but my fingers lingered over the key. I felt drawn to it, impaired by the notes entangling my thoughts. "What are you?" I whispered to the box, as if it could answer. My stomach twisted as memories began to flood back. Visions of laughter, warmth, and happiness mingled with a deep, unsettling sense of loss. I could see the faces of children dancing in the pale glow of moonlight, their silhouettes twisting in the shadowy corners of my mind. I took a step back, shaken. Suddenly, the front door creaked, and I froze. Someone was outside. The air shifted, cool and tense, as if something were about to snap. The lullaby had stopped, but the quiet was now threatening. My heartbeat raced again, drowning out the silence around me. I hurried to the window and peeked through the parted curtains. My heart sank. There she was, the neighbor standing right at my doorstep, her face shadowed. I felt her eyes boring into mine. She lifted a finger to her lips, a silent gesture that screamed for quietude. I wanted to call out, to ask what she wanted, why she was here, but every rational thought escaped me. The tapping returned, a faint rhythm against the walls, questioning me with its urgency. Just then, I caught a glimpse of movement behind her. A figure emerged from the dark, a tall silhouette, its features obscured. The first spark of terror ignited within me. I backed away from the window, the cold realization dawning on me. The lullaby wasn't just inviting me, it was a signal. The walls weren't just alive, they were a barrier. And I had to choose. Before I could collect my thoughts, a loud crash echoed from the back of the house, shattering the silence. My heart raced as I glanced back at the door. My neighbor was gone. Now, only the echoes remained, beckoning me to unravel the mystery. I knew I wouldn't be able to wait any longer. The crash had jolted me into action. I couldn't just stand there in the dark, paralyzed by fear. I rushed through the living room and into the hallway, my heart pounding in my ears. The sound had come from the kitchen, and I could still hear the faint tapping, more insistent now. As I rounded the corner, I saw the back door ajar. A sliver of moonlight spilled into the room, illuminating scattered kitchen items strewn across the floor. A chair had toppled over, and the fridge door swung slowly. I felt the chill creep down my spine. I stepped cautiously into the kitchen, the cool tiles pressing against my bare feet. Each breath felt heavy with dread, as if the air itself was warning me to turn back. I glanced around, searching for any sign of movement. "Hello?" I called, trying to mask my tremor with authority. The only reply was the eerie creaking of the house settling, that s when I saw it, a trail of dirt leading from the door to the hallway. My stomach twisted again, a wave of nausea washing over me. Was someone inside? My mind raced with possibilities while instinct screamed at me to flee. But I couldn't run, not yet. I followed the footprint trail, heart hammering as I stepped through the doorway into the living room. There, by the music box, something small caught my eye. A child's toy, a plastic figure I recognized from my past, lay abandoned. I picked it up, the dull surface warm from being handled recently. Panic rose as I remembered playing with this toy on long afternoons. Why was it here? I turned it around in my hand, and that's when it happened. The music box slid open again, the lullaby playing, but now it seemed louder, more urgent. The melody crawled under my skin, the haunting notes twisting memories I had buried. Faces of children flashed through my mind, my old friends, and a sense of dread tightened around my chest that I looked toward the door, half expecting the neighbor to return. I knew she had seen something terrifying enough to draw her away. But before I could process that thought, a shadow flickered at the edge of my vision. Someone had crossed the threshold. A figure stepped into the dim light, tall, gliding, almost fluid. My breath caught in my throat. The shape morphed, features coming into focus. It was a woman, the same woman I had glimpsed outside earlier. But her expression was different now, eyes wide yet unfocused, as if she were trapped in a waking dream. "Run!" she whispered urgently, the word barely escaping her lips. "You have to get out." Her voice shattered my frozen state. I realized then that the tapping had intensified, a steady rhythm that seemed to beckon me to the very core of the house. I felt an almost magnetic pull, but the woman stepped toward me, blocking the path. I hesitated. Where would I run? What had I stumbled into? The intensity of the moment pressed down on me, flooding every thought with uncertainty. Then, without warning, the lights flickered off, plunging the room into darkness. I felt a surge of terror, something more was coming. I stumbled backward, my pulse racing as I lifted my hands to shield my face from the unknown. Darkness enveloped me completely, making every sound seem amplified. I could hear my heart pounding against my ribs, each beat sending a fresh wave of fear through me. "Please," I said, my voice trembling. "What's happening?" The woman didn't respond. The silence was deafening, each second stretching out like an eternity. I could feel the cool air brushing against my skin and imagined unseen eyes watching me. Then I heard it again, the tapping, louder and sharper now, echoing through the house like the ticking of a clock counting down to something doom-laden. I knew I needed to move, but where? As my eyes adjusted to the dark, I caught a glimpse of my surroundings. The faint shapes of furniture rose from the shadows like specters. Desperation gripped me. I'm not going to stay here, I muttered to myself. I turned, aiming for the hallway, hoping to find my way back to the front door. Just as I started to shuffle forward, that same woman's hand shot out, brushing against my arm with an unnatural coolness. "Don't!" she hissed, voice laced with urgency. "It's not safe." I instinctively flinched at her touch, her gaze piercing through the darkness like a spotlight. Just then, the tapping ceased, replaced by a quiet, almost human sound, a soft breathing or whispers, indistinguishable yet intimate. "Who's there?" My voice was a whisper now, fear curling my words. "They're coming," the woman said, her voice trembling. "Hurry." Something rustled in the hallway, a scraping sound that sent shivers through me. With a jolt, I turned back to the living room, desperate to put distance between whatever lurked in the shadows and me. But the way back was blocked. The woman stood firm, unwavering, as if she dared not let me escape. That I glanced around frantically, knowing I couldn't wait for an explanation. I needed to find a way out. "We have to get out. Now." I pushed past her, deeper into the house. The air grew colder and the whispers louder, wrapping around me like a cold embrace. As I stumbled into another room, I collided with something hard and unyielding. I could barely make out the outline of an old wooden cabinet, its surface etched with deep scratches. Panic surged through me. I felt trapped. Then, my gaze fell on a small window above a sink, dust coating the glass. It beckoned like a gateway to freedom. I dashed towards it, the frantic whispers intensifying behind me. I scrambled to pull it open, but the window resisted, stuck tight from years of neglect. My frantic attempts echoed my spiraling thoughts. What was trying to get in? I risked a glance back. The woman's expression had shifted from urgency to something more desperate, as if she knew I was moments away from something terrible. Just as I managed to pry the window open a crack, I heard a final loud thump reverberate through the house, closer now. My heart raced as I forced my body through the small space. That's when I caught sight of what was behind me, eyes, dozens of them glimmering in the dark. The cold air rushed in as I tumbled outside, gasping for breath. I now stood in the moonlit yard, but the fear didn't let go. The whispers rang in my ears, a haunting echo of danger still lurking behind me. I turned back toward the house, and in that moment, I realized I had only escaped the shadows, I hadn't escaped the horror that awaited. I stood in the yard, the chill of the night wrapping around me like a thick fog. My eyes darted back to the house, heart hammering in my chest. The front door loomed just behind me, dark and foreboding. The whispers had grown quieter, but the eyes remained, glimmering from the darkened windows. "What do you want?" I shouted, though I didn't expect an answer. Only silence replied, heavy and thick. I felt a knot of dread tightening in my stomach. What had I unleashed? I took a few cautious steps away from the house, my instinct screaming for me to flee. The moonlight painted the yard in stark shadows. I caught sight of something on the ground, a shattered porcelain doll, its glassy eyes cracked but still unnervingly lifelike. A chill ran down my spine. I was not alone, the woman had warned me. I thought of her urgent voice, the way she had gripped my arm as if trying to anchor me. Had she escaped whatever was in that house? Or had she become part of it? With no time to ponder, I decided I needed to put some distance between me and the house. I stepped toward the gate at the end of the yard when something shifted in the shadows near the porch. I froze, straining to listen. A faint giggle, small and playful, floated through the air. I turned slowly, heart pounding. "Is anyone there?" I called, failing to keep the tremor out of my voice. Another whisper. It sounded like a child's laughter, but twisted and wrong. There was a flicker of movement, something small darting from behind the porch towards the shadows of the trees. Curiosity mixed with fear pulled me forward. "Hello?" I asked, my voice trembling. As I stepped closer, I swore I caught a glimpse of a figure, a child in a tattered dress, hair tangled and wild. But before I could approach, the child turned, and the laughter echoed again, a haunting sound that sent shivers down my spine. Then I heard it, a soft, rhythmic tapping, creeping closer from the direction of the house. I wanted to scream, but the words caught in my throat. I backed away, glancing over my shoulder at the gate. How could I escape if whatever was inside that house had gotten outside? In that moment, I made a decision. I needed to confront this. I couldn't keep running, and I couldn't let fear dictate my every move. Drawing a deep breath, I turned on my heel and dashed toward the porch. The tapping intensified, the echo of each sound ricocheting off the walls. As I reached the steps, the front door creaked open slowly. I took a hesitant step closer, and then I saw her, a figure standing silhouetted in the doorway. The woman from before, though her face was now obscured by shadows, her eyes shining with an eerie light. "Come back," she urged, voice barely above a whisper. "You can't go near her." Before I could process her words, the child appeared again, stepping into the dim light streaming from the doorway. But this time, there was something unnatural about her features. The laughter that followed sent a chill down my spine. What had I stumbled into? What darkness lay within this quiet neighborhood? Just then, the woman's gaze fixed on something behind me, her eyes wide with terror. I turned quickly, heart racing. That's when I saw it, a looming figure, emerging from the shadows with twisted limbs and hollow eyes. It glided forward, a grotesque smile stretched across its face. Panic surged within me. I had to make a choice, run or confront the horror I had awakened. I chose to confront it. My body surged with adrenaline, propelling me forward onto the porch. I could feel the weight of the woman's warning, but something primal pushed me to stand my ground. The child, still giggling softly, danced between the shadows, her movements too fluid, too unnatural. "Stay away from her," I shouted, finding strength in my voice that I didn't know existed. My heart raced louder than my thoughts, drowning out the fear. But as I realized the figure was still gliding toward me, that courage began to wane. With every step, the air felt heavier, charged with a dark energy. "What do you want?" I demanded again, trying to mask my fear. I could barely see the figure's face, its features still shrouded in the night, but the smile etched into its visage was clear, a twisted mockery of joy. The laughter from the child rose in pitch, the sound jagged and sharp. It wrapped around me, pulling at my sanity. "Why are you here?" I pressed, half hoping for some semblance of a rational answer, half desperate to pull the child from her dance of shadow. "Come play with us," the child sang, her voice lilting, but it was laced with something darker. The shadows around her thickened, swallowing any warmth the moonlight offered. I didn't want to move, I didn't want to answer. But there was a magnetic pull toward the girl, a chilling urge that felt like a whisper tugging at the edges of my mind. "Don't listen," the woman cried out, her voice breaking through the laughter like shattering glass. I looked back at her, the desperation evident in her wide eyes. "You have to leave. She's not what she seems." Before I could respond, the figure lunged forward, moving faster than I anticipated. Instinct kicked in, and I ducked to the side, narrowly avoiding the grasp of its elongated fingers. I dashed toward the open door, my only escape. The woman's silhouette loomed closer now, her arms reaching out as if to pull me to safety, but the child's laughter echoed again, sharper this time. "Not so fast," she shrieked, and the sound bounced off the walls of the house. There was a sudden rush of cold air, and then everything seemed to shift. The walls of the porch trembled, as if responding to her command, and shadows gathered thickly around me. I dashed forward, fueled by panic. My foot caught on the edge of the doorstep, and I fell awkwardly onto the floor inside. Instinctively, I scrambled back to my feet, looking for a way to shut the door against whatever horror was pursuing me. The woman's expression shifted. "You mustn't leave," she implored. "It knows when you're afraid. You must stand your ground." Fear warred within me, but stubbornness rose stronger. I looked at the child, her wild hair swaying in the flickering light from inside the house. "No. I'm not afraid of you," I yelled, my voice rising above the atmosphere of terror. The child froze, the laughter fading as her features twisted into something darker. For a moment, the room fell silent, the shadows held their breath. But then, I heard a whisper slithering through the air behind me, softer than before, but infinitely more menacing. "Let her go." A chill ran through me as I turned back, fear tightening around my heart like a vice. I realized then, whatever had lurked beyond that door was far worse than I had imagined. I needed to find a way out before it was too late. The moment I realized I was trapped, panic surged through me like lightning. The doorway loomed behind me, but it felt like a gateway to another world, a world I was certainly not ready to enter. With nowhere else to go, I turned back to the woman, my heart pounding at the confusion etched across her face. "Do you know what it is?" I asked, half expecting denial. "What is going on with that child?" She hesitated, glancing over her shoulder. I could see the shadows swirling outside, as if they awaited her answer. "It's not a child," she said, her voice lower now, each word laced with urgency. "It feeds on fear. If we show it fear, it grows stronger." The air thickened around us, putting pressure in my chest. I could still hear the child's laughter echoing in my mind, almost mocking. "Then how do I stop it?" I asked, desperation creeping into my voice. The woman stepped closer to me, her eyes wide with concern. "You have to believe in your strength. You cannot let it control you. You have to fight it." Before I could respond, the shadows behind her began to ripple, the distinct sound of soft, juvenile giggles growing louder. "Play with us." The child sang again, taunting us both. The whispers grew louder, surrounding me, murmuring indistinguishable threats. I stumbled backward into the room, feeling as though the walls themselves were closing in. I was caught in a trap of my own making, uncertainty swirling around. Suddenly, a new thought struck me. What if it's linked to something in this house? I scanned the dimly lit room, searching for anything that could help. The furniture was draped in sheets, as though the whole place had been abandoned long ago. "Check the attic," the woman urged, catching my gaze. "It likes to hide things that have power. Things that can bind it." I glanced at the front door, still ajar, and then back to the swirling shadows. I knew I had no choice. "Okay, I'll find it," I said, steeling myself against the encroaching cold. "Stay close to me." I dashed down the narrow hallway, the whispers growing more distinct behind me as I searched for the stairs. Each step felt heavy, as if the air was trying to force me back, but I pushed through, driven by a need to find a solution. At the end of the hall, I spotted a door that looked older than the rest. I hesitated for a moment, glancing over my shoulder, but the laughter kept pulling me forward. "I can't let it win," I muttered to myself. I swung the door open and found a steep staircase leading upward into darkness. I took a breath, then rushed up the stairs, heart racing. The shadows flickered and writhed around me, mocking my every move. When I reached the attic door, I paused, listening intently. It was quiet now. Too quiet. Something primal warned me not to open it, but I couldn't turn back. When I saw it, a faint glimmer through the cracks. My pulse quickened. I turned the knob slowly. And then everything went dark. I came to in complete silence. The darkness felt like a heavy blanket, suffocating and cold. Confusion swirled in my mind as I blinked against the void. I strained to hear anything, but the silence was oppressive. I reached out, my hands brushing against the rough wooden floor of the attic. Panic surged again, but I fought it back. I couldn't afford to let fear take hold. Slowly, I pushed myself up and scanned the room. Without any light, I focused on my other senses. The air felt stale and heavy, carrying the faintest hint of dust. I could smell something rancid, a combination of age and something else that felt wrong. I shuffled forward, groping blindly in the dark, desperate to find anything that might provide answers. Then, a flicker. A brief splinter of light danced across my vision, barely perceptible but undeniable. My heart raced again as I turned toward it, moving cautiously. The light quivered, illuminating a corner of the room where an old trunk sat, slightly ajar. It caught my attention, guiding my steps in the pitch black. I crouched down beside it and pulled at the lid. It creaked open reluctantly, revealing what looked like an assortment of toys. They seemed innocent enough at first glance: dolls with cracked porcelain faces, wooden blocks, and faded teddy bears. But there was something unsettling about the way they glimmered, as if they were eager to be picked up. As I shifted my weight, the attic creaked beneath me, and an unsettling tension filled the air. I could feel something watching me, a shadow just beyond the edge of my vision, waiting for me to react. I ignored the instinct to look back, keeping my focus on the contents of the trunk. Then, I noticed a small, ornate box at the bottom, its surface smooth and polished, unlike the other items. A feeling nagged at me, a sense of importance. I reached for it and pulled it out. The moment my fingers wrapped around the box, a rush of whispers surrounded me, louder than before. The child's laughter pierced through the stale air, clearer and more mocking than ever. Just as I stepped back, the atmosphere shifted. The trunk slammed shut with a forceful thud, sending vibrations through the floor. I stumbled back, heart racing, my grip tightening on the ornate box. "What do you want?" I shouted into the darkness, my voice trembling. The shadows seemed to twist and tremble in response, crawling toward me like smoke. I couldn't tell if they were advancing or retreating. That's when I felt the unmistakable chill of breath against my neck. A soft, childlike voice whined, "Play with us." The giggles echoed all around me, wrapping around my thoughts like a vine tightening its grip. Panic surged as I spun around, searching for the source of the voice. "No! I want to play!" I yelled, gripping the box tighter, hoping it held some power. Suddenly, I heard footsteps. Heavy and slow, trudging from the stairs. The darkness was closing in, and my instinct screamed at me to get out. My breathing quickened as I stumbled backward. I had to decide fast. Then, out of the shadows, I saw a figure. It was a silhouette against the darkness, vague yet somehow familiar. My blood ran cold as I recognized the outline. Someone was in the attic with me. I couldn't remain still, not anymore. I turned to dash for the stairs, but with each step I took, the whispers grew louder. "Let us play," they insisted, a terrifying chorus that followed me as I fled back into the fading light of confusion and dread. As I stumbled down the stairs, my heart raced. The whispers surged behind me, a cacophony of laughter and soft urgency swirling in the air. My grip on the ornate box tightened as I felt the cold tendrils of darkness encroach. Hungry for my fear, bursting into the hallway, I hesitated at the living room door. Shadows flickered ominously. I couldn't turn back, the pressure of what lay behind me grew unbearable. I lunged for the door, flinging it open and coming face to face with the chaos within. The child's laughter crescendoed, a dissonant symphony mixed with the relentless tapping that rattled the walls. The woman I had seen earlier stood frozen by the entrance, her eyes wide, but this time they were less desperate. There was something defiant within them. "You have it!" she exclaimed, nodding to the ornate box I clutched at. I didn't have time to wonder about her words. The shadows coalesced into darker shapes with twisted voices beckoning me to join their play. The air felt electric, crackling with tension as the malevolent energy surged. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but the woman's steady gaze held me in place. "Show them you're not afraid," she shouted over the cacophony, and something clicked. The box, whatever power it held, it was mine to wield. Drawing in a deep breath, I steadied myself. I am not afraid, I declared, holding the box firmly before me. The whispers hesitated, a brief silence washing over the room as if my proclamation shattered the spell they cast. In that moment, I turned the ornate box, searching for a mechanism to release whatever power it contained. I fumbled for a key-like feature on its surface, hoping that whatever magic it held could push back the darkness. The whispers turned desperate, harmonizing into a high-pitched wail, and I felt a swell of energy within me, a latent strength rising to meet the darkness. "Leave me be!" I shouted, twisting the box and feeling vibrations pulse through my palms. With sudden clarity, I found a small lever at the top. Without another thought, I pulled it down sharply. A brilliant light burst forth, illuminating the darkness with a blinding glow. The shadows recoiled, their forms dissolving into wisps as the luminescence surged, sweeping through the room like wildfire. The child's laughter morphed into shrieks of outrage, echoing against the walls as I watched their figures dissolve. The weight in the air lifted, releasing me from the suffocating pressure that had clung to me for so long. As the brilliance faded, I dropped to the floor, gasping for breath. The room fell silent but for the distant tapping, which now sounded more like a solitary heartbeat, a reminder, tempered yet haunting. The woman was gone. Shakily, I rose to my feet and surveyed the now empty living room. The air felt lighter, but the remnants of what had occurred lingered like a shadow, a dark cloud persistently hanging over me. I hesitated, glancing back toward the shadows that had seemed so alive moments before. My next steps felt uncertain. I walked cautiously to the door, peering through the window at the moonlit yard outside. I couldn't shake the lingering sense of dread, the unanswered questions clawing at the edges of my mind. Had I truly defeated whatever haunted this place? Or had I just drawn its gaze toward me? As I took my first step outside, I felt a tremor in the ground beneath my feet. Something shifted at the edge of my vision, a flicker that suggested I hadn't seen the last of my neighbor or the darkness that thrived here. Maybe it was just a reflection of the night, or a shadow playing tricks on my weary mind, but deep down, I felt the connection to something greater than myself. I moved westward, driven by instinct, leaving the porch behind. As I did, I dared to glance back, my heart clenching. The windows of the house were dark and quiet, yet I could sense the pulse of life within, eager, waiting. I took a deep breath, leaving that neighborhood. Each step forward felt like a new beginning, yet I couldn't shake the uncertainty lingering behind me. I might have escaped, but the question stayed: was the threat truly gone? What had become of my neighbor? What darkness still dwelled in that house? With each step away, the answers felt further out of reach, but the weight of that night would forever linger like a tide pulling at my heart. I moved to a different part of town after that, needing distance from the echoes of the past. Sometimes, late at night when the world is asleep, I think about that house, wondering if the lullaby still plays. But mostly, I tell myself it was all behind me, weaving my way through life as the uncertainties linger like shadows, always close but never quite in reach.